Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Opinion Machine, the show where we talk about all things gaming. My name is Killjoy, and today we're going to be talking about Rogue Core, and my thoughts on Rogue Core after about 52 hours of play, maybe slightly more, and what state the game's in, where we're at to now, and kind of some things that I'd like to see, maybe potentially added or changed, and kind of go through it there. For an early access game, I would say this game's been pretty good. Obviously, when the game came out, there was a lot of anger and very, very divisive parts of this game, and I do think some of that's been addressed, and I do think it's improved it, but there are still some things in this game that need maybe a little bit leveling out. But I want to start with the good stuff and kind of talk about the current state now, and then get onto the stuff that I think needs improving. So let's start with some of the updates that they did bring to the game from the feedback, which was two things that really stood out to me. One was they upgraded the boss arenas to try and not have so many of the bosses on a high hill, so when the orbs that you need to chuck into the hole get blown away, then go flying off, and you have to run down a hill and come back and then roll it back up again. This is, for the most part, I would say, in a much better place. There are still some boss arenas that we'll come to that later that do need some tweaking, but for the most part, the actual boss arenas are at least a bit flatter, and the bosses tend to spawn down in the bottom of the boss arenas rather than too close to the top. You will still get the occasional one, which is fair enough, it is still randomly generated to a degree, but it definitely feels leveled out. Personally, for me, I think one of the biggest changes, and this has helped me massively, was the visual indicator to the clock. Now, originally the clock would just have a bar that would go up and it had no timer, so you didn't really know how much time you had on any of the depths or how that could be adjusted. Now you've actually got dots that fill in, and you have a timer that counts down, and it gets adjusted depending on assault pace as well as the depth of mission that you are currently doing. Now this is huge because it means that you can figure out how long it takes when you get to the end of a mission. How long have you got left before it hits red and the worms turn up and it goes nuts, right? It's about a minute. So you can set off the elevator with about a minute 10, and it will hit the red, and as long as nothing goes wrong, you can get on it. That is huge information to have, and that would have been so beneficial from the start. I think the clock change is massive. It just means that you can kind of figure out stuff a lot easier on the fly, figure out what's worth your time, what isn't, how much time you've got left. We get down to about 2 minutes a lot of the time when we're doing DO2s. We're working our way up in a team, trying to get deeper ones and just sort of figuring things out like that. So that's useful information and feedback to the player. Obviously, I said assault pace there. Assault pace is a nice idea as well. Assault pace is, do you want more time or less time? If you go with standard, you get your normal XP. If you go with less, more time, but you get less XP. If you go with less time, you get more XP. So there is a risk reward to it there. I have only tried assault pace on a slower one once, and I can definitely see the use to it. It's very useful to learn how to do the deeper missions, so DO3, DO4, those depths. You probably want to do a slower assault pace just to kind of get a vibe of how difficult they are, because the way the game works is every time you go down a depth, you will get longer spawns, you will get more enemies, more enemy variety, stuff like that. So having more time to kind of process that and get used to it before going back to normal assault pace is incredibly useful. The other thing right now is that I do think there is a good selection of guns and upgrades in this game. They've obviously gone in and tweaked a load of them in the last couple of patches. They've made, you've got your artifacts and your standard upgrades and all these different things. There are so many of them, and a lot of them are really good. You can build around a lot of them. You can go for some stuff with melee, you can go stuff with fire, ice, lightning, health stuff, gun damage, weak point damage. There's a lot in there, and there's plenty to pick from. And I think that there's a good selection. I would love to see almost double in some cases, at least each, so you've got common, epic, and all that stuff. I'd love to see maybe 10 added to each one. That sounds quite crazy, but just having as much choice as possible, I'm always down for that. And I like the fact that it gives options to your run depending on the weapon you're using, depending on the class, things like that. It allows you to kind of try things out a bit better. Obviously, you are limited to whatever pops up, and it is randomly generated in that sense, but I do like where they've gone with it, and I like a lot. I've got my own personal favourites already, like there's the one that's like when you reload, you get a boost of speed for 2 seconds, like 45% increased movement speed. There's the double jump one, which is kind of not that great, but I kind of like it. There's the one with gravity. There's some really fun ones in there, along with like actually good ones, like increased critical damage, like your abilities like going 250% increased cooldown time when you stand still. Like, there's some really fun things they've added in there, and I can't knock that. So that side of things is really good. We also have the selection of classes. Now, I have basically leveled each class at least once. Most of them I've done twice. Most recent one being the Falconer, and the only class I haven't really played that much is the Slicer. I kind of get it. The Slicer's very, very big damage class, which is really cool. So that's basically who I'm going to be playing through going forward, is kind of get a handle on them. But I would say I like most of the classes. I think my least favourite's the Falconer, even though I do believe they have the ability, being able to like revive someone from afar is probably one of the most powerful abilities in the game. Really, really good. But for me personally, I think the Spotter and the Retcon are my favourites. Guardian's quite basic, but also probably one of the easiest classes to get on with. I like the fact that they all kind of have a role, they all have the different things. Like Guardian, you've got like the shots, you've got the ability to push things away, a very defensive class. The Spotter obviously has the radar, which is really, really powerful, especially with dealing with stuff on the ceiling, and has the being able to tag things so they take more damage. And then obviously the Falconer has like an extra thing that flies around, like the little metal falcon that flies around and shoots things. You can obviously revive people from afar. You do a lot of lightning damage. And so each of the classes, they all do different things, and they all kind of gel really well together. So I very much appreciate that. I just think right now that the Falconer is the one where I'm like, I wouldn't say that they're bad, and I don't think they need adjusting, because I think they fill a role very well. Just for me personally, they're probably the least fun. And I'm not saying like they're absolutely terrible, would never play them. I still have fun playing them. But what the Spotter can do, what the Retcon can do especially, Retcon feels like one of the harder ones. They just feel more interesting to me personally. But I would say that the selection of classes is very cool. I'm very curious to see what they do going forward, if they like any tweaks or any additions and things like that to them. But other than that, pretty good. So the way the game is with your gun selection, which there are a ton of guns, they've added in a couple since launch, the Sludge Pump and the Trident. There's a ton of guns to try from. There's a ton of those upgrades on those guns. There's tons of stuff from the bio boosters, the main upgrades from the XP and all of that stuff, plus what the classes are, plus how the game is right now. Especially playing on like we play on Depvo 2 mostly, just leveling up characters and things like that. But like that difficulty and stuff about that feels right. Now this game can get very difficult, but I would say the game is in a good spot compared to launch. I would say it's in a much better spot. There are obviously things that need tweaking and additions and changing, which we will come on to in a sec. But I want to say that for a game that I've put as much time into now, and I really do like Rogue Core. I think Rogue Core is a lot of fun. I think now is actually a better time, if you're thinking of getting into the game, now is a better time to do it, because I think the game, having the 2 patches it's had, makes the game better. There is one change they have added, which I will come to, which I don't like. But other than that, I think the game is very playable. It looks decent, it plays well, it runs very well. I've not had too many issues. A few minor visual bugs, but that's about it. But the actual game right now is worth playing. So that brings me on to things that I would like to talk about that I think either the game needs or I think would really help benefit the game. But bear in mind that this is just opinion. I don't know if a lot of this will actually happen, but I do want to kind of give my reasonings for why I think this would improve the game in its current state. So I love how the game is, but there are changes that would help. First of all, and I posted this on the Steam forums, is having a gun range on the Ramrod. And the reason for this is because unlike normal DRG, where you can pick whatever weapon you want, go into a mission, try it out, decide whether you like it or not, in this game you don't do that. So like the example I gave was they added an update that changed to the boomstick and it changed the Warthog, 2 of the shotguns. Now I had spent a lot of time with the Warthog. I don't really like the Warthog that much in this game. I feel like it's quite weak, but for the test and purposes of this, I managed to get it a lot. I hardly got the boomstick, and about 4 or 5 runs it didn't pop up. So I had no way of testing it. And that was the frustrating thing. It's like, oh, I want to be able to see what you've done to this game by having like a gun range to just test it. Like, just so I can see Like, have you actually improved it? Does it feel better to use? Maybe allow me to try some combinations with it. Like an area like that, I think that would go such a long way in just helping people understand how weapons work, understanding how, you know, what abilities to take on it, what buffs. Like, do you want to put burst fire on this gun? Do you want to put lightning? Do you want to do poison damage? All that sort of stuff. If you've got a better handle on it, sure, you could say maybe it's taking away a little bit of the randomness and learning. But when you're starting to like play on the higher difficulties and you're still just figuring a few things out, it would be nice to understand. Like, for example, I really like the Hammercaster. We'll take that as an example. The Hammercaster is like a big, I don't really think it's a shotgun, but it fires out shells that are like big sort of slugs that are just big things that, like they say, as big as your fists. I have no idea how good that is on a higher difficulty versus a lower difficulty. It could be that, like, I don't really like the Warthog, but maybe in the long run that's actually a better gun to take. Being able to like do a bit of trial and error, I don't think would hurt, and I think it would help massively for players to get a handle on it. Obviously you're going to have min-maxes, but I don't think it really matters when the game is just co-op. And I find this with a lot of games. It's like, if it's a co-op game, give me all the tools. Like, it doesn't matter if I break the game, quote unquote. Like, let me try some things out. Let me understand how the guns work. Let me go to the gun range. Let me try the boomstick. Let me try it with burst fire. Let me try it with, you know, fire damage or whatever. And then when I go into the levels, when those particular upgrades do come up, because obviously it's still random when you get into it, you'll know, you go, ah, that's what I want. I want that one to stick it on my gun. And because it's always random, it doesn't matter if you get to mess around with it, because you've got to expect that exact combinations of things to come up to be even able to do it. It just means you, as the player, have the knowledge of what you personally like, rather than just willy-nilly trying stuff, which is great for some people, but other people it is nice to actually know, like, oh, do I like this gun? No, I don't like this gun. I will not pick this gun. Like, I don't really want to pick the Stubby or the Zhukovs all the time. Like, I enjoy playing with them, but maybe, like, I'm like, I should steer clear of this gun. I don't get on well with them. I think that would be huge. From there, some smaller additions. When you have the upgrade page, it would be nice to be able to hover over the ones that I don't have and actually see what they're called, so that when I'm in the game, I can just go, oh, I've not tried that one, I can try it. Or, in-game, put a little symbol next to it, like new, if you haven't used it before, just so that you can, because it's one of those things, maybe it's more that there's like a collector's mentality. I want to fill it all out, I want to be able to look at it all and know what I have and haven't got, and then when I do have it all, I can go in and go, okay, these are the upgrades I'm looking for. Nothing major. I do think this will eventually get not fixed, but changed, so that you can either read them when they're locked, or in-game you'll know. But just a small change. It would be nice. Same with the artifacts. Just let me know what they're called, so when they do pop up, I'm like, ah, I want to try that one. One maybe controversial change that I personally would like, and this, I guess you could say this is just more to do with how me and my group play, but I actually think it wouldn't be the worst idea to have a personal radar on all the characters that only shows where the other characters are, not the spotter. The spotter is the only one that should be able to see the enemies and like have that, but being able to see where your allies are all the time would be huge. And the reason I bring this up, and you know, you could say, well, you just need to like hold control down or whatever to be able to see them, but the amount of times I'm in a boss fight and like either I'm stood behind someone and they walk in front of my gun, or I'm in front of someone meleeing and they shoot me in the back of the head. It happens surprisingly often, and it's not through anybody's fault per se, of like, you know, we're not actively going out and trying to blow each other up. I mean, we do that, but for the most part, and I wish there was just a quick glance down to be like, oh, the red player's behind me, okay, cool, I know where he is, like, he's very close kind of thing. Even if it's just a 5-meter radius radar for the rest of the characters, I think that would be so useful, just to that. You could say, well, you know, hold down control to show you. I'd be okay if there was if there's a toggle on the sides where it would always have like the symbols for each of the characters on the side of the screens, so it kind of points to where they are, or tells you a distance from where they are to you. Clearly has it, but like, it's just one of those things where I'm like, man, I'm sick of getting shot in the back of the head by my teammates, because then you're like, well, is it their fault because I walked in front of their gun, or is it my fault? No, sorry, is it their fault because I walked that way and they shot me and they should have stopped and seen me doing it, or is it my fault because I just moved straight into their line of sight? So, you know, 50-50 on that one. But I think a small personal radar that just shows the other characters within like a 5 meter to 10 meter radius would be so useful. Even if it's like looks different to the main radar, just something on the side or some sort of toggle just to have that. I think that would go a long way of just helping not shoot or not get shot and not shoot my allies in the head. After that, I think even with the most recent upgrades with the boss rooms, I want to talk about bosses in general really here. So I want to start with the boss rooms. I still think they need improvement. Maybe not in the way that they're formed, but there are times when I'm still fighting with the levels. Now I understand you want some like height both low and high. I get that. But there are times where there's just like massive drops and things like that, and I think that stuff's got to go. It's so frustrating when you're trying to like fight the bosses, especially with one of the biggest changes being they've added in mobs from your warnings. There's so much to be thinking about, and I shouldn't have to fight with the level. Like that just feels frustrating, because what they've done so far is like, oh, we've made most of the bosses spawn lower down so that you don't have to go chasing after the balls and the shards. That's great. That is a huge change. But honestly, like don't have like health on the ceiling. Like that needs to change anyway. Like if you're gonna put health in a boss room, make it somewhat accessible or like easy to reach. Sometimes it spawns on the ceiling. I'm like, I do not have the time to deal with this kind of thing. So there's that. You know, same with the ammo. The ammo is always splayed out in weirdly. Sometimes it's like really high up. Sometimes it's really low down. I think some of that generation needs improvement, and I'm sure they'll do it, but it just means like I want to focus on the boss, and I'm meant to be focusing on the boss and the mobs and the objectives I'm meant to be doing here. I don't want to focus on these other things. Oh, the health's all the way on the top of the ceiling. Well, screw me then, because I ain't getting that. Like, you know, there's things that need tweaking to make it feel a little bit more balanced. Sometimes you're going to get to a boss room and rinse them. Sometimes you're going to get to a boss room and get absolutely destroyed, and that's fine, but make it feel fair at least. Excuse me. So that you can, you know, again, you've got the health that's in reasonable places. Like, it doesn't matter if the boss is attacking me and I'm trying to get health, as long as I can try and get it. Like, that feels fair, and you've got to time that. But when it's, like, on the ceiling, same with the ammo, when it's, like, really high up, it's just like, wow, this just doesn't need to be this way, does it? Because even then, when you're trying to get ammo, it's like, oh, I need to time this so that the boss and the mobs aren't going for me. That's fine. Don't change that difficulty, just change the placement and make it feel fairer in this arena. I will say that the one thing that they have changed with the so if you pick a warning, let's say you pick core spawn scorchers, so you get mobs of them now, you will have that happen to you in the boss fight. I actually think this is a bad change, or it's something that I think should be toggleable, because honestly, trying to do some of the boss fights and then suddenly all these very, very specialized enemies and a large amount of specialized enemies turn up, again, it takes away, like, I like the challenge of it, but it does take away from the fact that I'm already fighting a difficult boss. I don't mind the enemy type spawning in the boss room, but just when like 4 or 5 turn up, you're like, good lord. It does get a bit manic. I actually would, like I said, make it toggleable as a difficulty choice. Like, do you know, warnings affect bosses, rather than have it just so that they do. Because when you get like edge stalkers turn up, oh god, edge stalkers are one of the most annoying enemies to deal with. And because they're so far away and you're in the middle of a boss fight, it's like, I don't want to deal with this. This is a type of mutator that should definitely be optional, not actually impacting the fact that I'm already dealing with normal spawns and I'm dealing with a boss like this. It just feels a little bit off, and especially on the higher difficulties, it's just a bit much. Like, when it becomes so chaotic to the point where you're just running around and you're not doing anything, it becomes unfun. It's like, I need to be able to advance what I'm doing and deal with the challenge. And that also brings me on to ammo in this game. It's like, ammo is so hit and miss. Like, you might have a gun that has a lot of ammo that kicks back enough, you know, weak point damage or whatever, and be fine. Other times, you just get absolutely destroyed because you've got no ammo. I think in the boss rooms, it needs to change. It needs to be different. You either need to have a slight recharge or enemies drop ammo as well as health. Because sometimes you're running around for ages, especially when you're in the middle of a boss fight. You know, you have to get the orb or whatever to chuck it back in. It's doing a crazy bunch of attacks. You've got the normal spawns. You've now got the red spawns on you. You know, clammerheads are turning up, scorchers, all this stuff. I'm like, I've got a pickaxe. I've got no ammo. Like, this is the gun I've chose with. Yeah, it hits like a truck. And I get it. It's the choice. But you need to level that out a bit. You need to make it so that the player doesn't feel like I'm running around in circles like a headless chicken, or running out of the boss room to try and go and get more, you know, ammo somewhere else. Luckily, there's no time limit, but it doesn't feel good, I don't think. I think that, like, you should be able to have a lot of that stuff as optional, so that, like, you get more XP and it's more of a challenge for people that are, like, doing deep depth level 4 levels, and they want that. Fair enough, but when I'm still like plowing through the game and learning and doing things like that, it just feels a bit intense. So that's something that I would change. Two last things that I would say then for this that I would like to see implemented. Giving each player one reroll per level. I believe they're looking at doing rerolls. I don't think you need lots of rerolls on every single thing, but I think having like maybe a reroll on the basic guns, maybe a reroll on the grenades, like, or you know, something you can use it, or even like on a heavy weapons crate or something like that. I don't necessarily think you need it on the normal upgrades, but I think if you walk into, especially early on, you walk in, you grab a gun, and you're like, I don't like any of these guns. I think having one reroll there would be nice. And then obviously you can change your gun at the workbench, but I think you kind of want to start off with something, you know, where you don't feel like, oh, I don't like this, you know. It's a minor change, but and I know that they're doing rerolls, but that is something that I would love to see added in. And the last thing, this again is very personal, and it's more just of a gameplay thing that I would prefer. So I don't think this will happen because of the way that the game's designed. But why is it that I can have full armor and very little health and die? I really dislike this mechanic in this game. The way I would prefer it is that your armor is what gets taken off first, then your health. If that means I have less health in the game, I'm fine with that. Buff the armor, make it. But I would much prefer it, because there's nothing worse than running around when you've got like 100 armor and like 10 health, and you die, and you're like, but I've got all this armor. Like, why? I know they're going for the idea that armor reduces damage. I definitely would prefer it that like armor is what gets destroyed first, and then your health. So like, say you have 50 health, you can't get it much higher than that without getting upgrades, but you have 150 armor or whatever. So once that armor's gone, then you're in like risky mode. Because the thing is, what's cool about that is like, if you've got 1 health and it doesn't recharge, but you've got 100 armor, now it's like, now you have to play very well. And I like the kind of risk reward with that. I don't think it will get changed, mainly because it's like seems to be a core part of the game. Even in original DRG, you have a shield that recharges and you have health, but I think for the most part in that, your shield goes down first before you take health damage, unless you like drop that. No, even if you do full damage, your shield goes first. So it's a change that I would love to see happen. I just don't think it will because of the mechanics and the style of game. But ultimately, I really dislike the fact that, oh, I've upgraded tons and tons and tons of armor, 200 and something armor. Oh yeah, but you've got like hardly any health. One shot, boom, you're down. You're like, oh, it just feels bad, man. That's a lot of the time with stuff like this. It's like a feeling thing for me, because I don't want to say the mechanics themselves are bad, because they're probably not bad. It's just they don't feel great to interact with, and some people will disagree because they prefer that. But for me, I'm like, nah, change it so that the armor is what gets removed first before taking health damage. I think that would go a long way. There is what and how I feel about the game at the moment. I'm still very much enjoying the game, even with these changes I want to see come. I know these guys will put in a lot of effort. They put out a big roadmap. A lot of what they want to add in, more enemy types, more bosses, more of everything. All these things will come down the line. I just hope that that they're listening and they end up seeing some of this other stuff. Like, I'm posting on the Steam forums, trying to make sure that some of these things are being posted up there, getting other people's opinions on it, to see what may or may not materialize in the game. But that is going to do it for me today then, guys. Thank you so much for watching, as always. If you like the video, hit the like button. If you want to see more content on Rogue or any other games like this, then hit the subscribe button. And until next video, I will see you then.